were yesterday in two of our other 6 communities. We were in Ely in the morning and up in Cook as well. As part of kind of our wrap-up touch base on our project. It was 18 months ago, right, about that we first gathered. And our team is visiting, we're doing around this just to try to have a chance for all of us together to hear about how it went, what happened, how you feel about it, and a little bit about what's next too, and where we might go from there. So I guess my main thing I wanted to say is thank you for coming this morning. We're really excited to hear about, just to have a conversation kind of about sort of what happened, how we feel about it, and what it might mean for Hibbing. We've got some new colleagues with us that you guys haven't met before from Blinded Foundation who are here today. And really glad to have our team from communications and with us, and Luann Robinson is here as an intern with us this summer. Oh, so we're really excited to have her in the communications shop. So I thought maybe it would make sense for us to go around and just introduce ourselves. I know you guys all know each other, but especially to help our team hear who you are. And we'd love to hear, so your name, obviously, and then the role that you played in the project would be super helpful. Tom?
Sure. My name's Tom Whiteside. I work for Congressman Nolan's office. My role in the projects where I worked a lot on the library hotspots that we had in the city, and then I also helped facilitate funds to go to fiber optics going into the Memorial Building, which is a big community spot in town. So.
Julie George with the Entrepreneur Fund. My role was working with the Chamber closely on the digital marketing consulting one-on-one, as well as the marketing seminars. And then also the Entrepreneur Fund was the fiscal sponsor for this particular grant.
Lori Fito, Hibbing Chamber. Chamber was the lead convener on the project. I don't know that we intended to be, but we ended up being that. So we worked in partnership with the Entrepreneur Fund, which was a godsend to us, and I really appreciate everything you guys did. Let's see what else. I am retiring in March, so just putting that out there for anybody who doesn't know that. But I think everybody here knows. So,
sadly.
And I told Bill, yeah, sadly.
Not
Not
sad.
sad.
A lot of time in the volunteer time.
Lots of committees, Lori.
Wrong. I'm a woods girl. I'm a Youper by heart, and so I'm retiring to the
Youper,
woods.
is that Upper Peninsula?
Yeah.
Is that what that means? I never heard that before.
Oh, Youper? Really?
Huh.
It's pretty common.
Okay.
She's a 6'1" too.
That's nice.
I can even convert my language into Youperese if you ever want to hear it. But yeah, actually I'm going there at the end of the month. So anyway, that's me. Yeah.
Jessie Mappy, I work for HTC, and I helped with the project for bringing high school students to the college and teaching them about IT and technology. It was kind of a technology fair.
Go ahead. Ellen Lascarbo, Hibbing Chamber. I'm new here, so yeah, my first time.
You're taking over for Lori, are you, when she's in?
No,
You're the new
I
one.
work for Ella.
Behind the scenes gal.
Yep.
Yeah, good.
Melissa Schwarzy with Hibbing Chamber. I worked with Julie with the marketing series.
Allie McInerney, Blinded Foundation and Communications, and as Brittany mentioned, we're here because we are hoping to capture some of the stories about the work that you did. So if you are interested in either chatting with us on camera, on just chatting, and we can take notes, we would love to share some of those stories. So we can connect after the meeting.
Bill Coleman, here on behalf of Blinded Foundation.
Luann Robinson, Blinded Foundation Communications intern, and just getting all the experience and skills I can get for the summer. All right.
Mary Magnuson, Blinded Foundation. I'm the grant administrator.
And Tracy and I write with Blended on broadband. So I'm the one who generally has a camera, taking notes, all that stuff.
Yeah, great. Thanks, super. Well, so I think if we could, Lori, maybe you can just help us kind of go through the projects and hear about what you undertook and then what's happened, and then we'll just kind of take it from there.
We were planning on just having updates from the that's all we were planning on doing. Mm-hmm. So maybe we can talk about what we did with the digital consultant? Is that what
Maybe
you're gonna
let's
do?
start with the
Yeah,
the minors project, cause that was
Yeah.
kind of a round one that
right.
finished off
Up
this
in round
spring.
two, yeah.
If you wanted to talk about that, Tom.
Sure. So, yeah, the project is that we're bringing fiber optics into the memorial building here in Hibbing. It's a big community building. It has like a senior center in it. Kids use it for STEM fairs in the summertime when the ice isn't in. Obviously, people use it for ice hockey and all sorts of things. We have the circus goes in there and uses it, and then sometimes when big political candidates, like I think Hillary Clinton came and spoke from there, and some other bigger events take place in there. But they just had really, really terrible internet. Nobody could get onto the Wi-Fi. And when I was working with them, actually, the Pete Hyduk, who's the facilities manager, had told me that during one of the meetings that we had, like his internet had been down for a week. They called and like tried to get it back up, and so they like couldn't run anything out of there for a whole week. So I was like, basically what we did is we were able to shift some funds around that we had left over from this great blinding grant project, and we went to the city council. They thought it was a great idea. We spoke with Pete Hyduk, the facilities manager. Basically, we're actually going to be able to, it's going to be a $13,000 or $12,300 project for installation, and their monthly cost for, I believe, 50 meg for the building, which I think is up from like 10 or 12 that they had for the entire building, is going to be about $100. And that's actually down from the monthly payment that they were paying for the previously poor service. So it's just a win-win for the community. Individuals, when kids come in and they're having their STEM events, they're going to be able to, download videos in real time if they're doing that for a presentation or something. If we're having major political people, or if we're having other concerts or whatever we want to do in that space, they're going to be able to, in real time download, and people are going to be able to use those facilities. So right now, they have put in the conduit, I believe, and they're still waiting to put the fiber in, but they're working on that right now. There's also so it's CTC, and CTC is working with the Northeast Area Service Co-op, I believe, who are the actual installers. And so this is happening at the same time that the memorial building itself is getting all sorts of facility upgrades. So it's like perfect timing to get it while other construction is going on in the facility. We're hoping to get it done by the end of this month. I've been working with the Entrepreneur Fund to get everything wrapped up as far as the billing and the invoicing and that sort of thing. And I know that we've been communicating on that. So
We appreciate you being like
yeah,
flexible with it, just because it's
yeah,
the city,
yeah. Well, the biggest thing is that like we were just waiting on an invoice from CTC, and then we could just like close it down. And I don't know why it took us a while. Probably it's on me, but we're gonna get it done, and that's it. And it's gonna be a great boon for the community. It's gonna be a great place where people can go and use it whenever. So I guess that's the update.
Thanks for doing that. I don't think it's on you. I'm so glad you handled it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's exciting to have that kind of, just opens up so many possibilities for that building,
Yeah.
and makes it more attractive for events.
Right, and they have the other renovation going on, so I think for everybody. And I mean, honestly, people who go to events would have to go stand outside in the middle of winter to get us. It was ridiculous.
We were able to slide some of the funding from our Wi-Fi hotspot program that didn't cost as much as we had initially thought.
Right.
And so those are still in the library for people to check out. And then we came up with this alternate, plan kind of midway through, going, hey, we know fiber is just right outside the door. Let's get it hooked up. What do we need to do? And Tom kind of took that and ran with it. So.
And that's also in thanks to PCs for People for getting us such cheap, or affordable pricing for the service and the the technology software, not the software, but the hardware for the hotspots for the library in town. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're only like $40 a piece
Yeah,
or something.
super
It's
cheap.
We had
super.
allocated
Yeah,
a
that's
lot more money for that project, so.
Yeah, and I remember I got some other pricing, and we were saving something like $6,000 or $8,000 just because we went with PCs for people. So
Yep.
great.
So how did it come, how did this decision to work on the community center to bring fiber to it come to the attention of this group? I mean, how did that emerge as a kind of a little project?
I think
for
it
you?
was kind of me just pushing it. Like
I think so.
I mean,
It did. It
like
was.
we had
Yeah.
we had another gentleman who was working on this project with me, and I think it sort of just his other job got too overwhelming, and he kind of stepped away, and so I kind of stepped up, and these funds. I also grew up playing hockey, so I like to play hockey there a lot,
Yeah.
and so like I know
Yeah.
how much that place is
I
utilized.
think Pete just brought it up, right? Is there any, if there's any leftover money we could?
Yeah, I mean, I just go around and ask people questions like, hey, how is the internet in your place? And Pete had mentioned that it's terrible. I was like, well, there you go.
And I spend a lot of time there too, so I was really supportive.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh.
and I just think it's a huge community asset there with
Yeah.
all the different, the senior center and the
Mhm.
historical society and
Mhm.
the potential for that building. And so
Yeah.
I was supportive of them all doing this, and we were all like,
Yeah, there's even a theater down there, and
Yeah.
you know that can utilize it. There's a few different rooms that people can rent, and like the makerspace people in town here, a lot of their beginning meetings were in that community building. So
Pretty soon they'll say, well, that 50 meg isn't enough.
oh, I know, but
Right.
that's the
But
thing.
that's
We have
fine.
fiber, so they
Upgrade
can
as you go,
upgrade.
yeah.
I mean, they could probably upgrade to 100 or whatever and still be paying less than they
Right.
were before. I'm not going to mention any companies.
Those little small wins around here, big
Mhm.
win,
Yeah.
working with the city and all
That's,
of the
I was
different
just gonna say,
entities,
having
like-
the city
That was a-
participate was good,
Yep.
I think. And then through both the library and the memorial building, and then we heard from the fire department that they would like help too, so we haven't gone that, so that might be a future thing.
Mhm.
And I don't know, we might wanna go
Yeah.
back to them and,
I mean, we
part-time,
we
but-
didn't have the funds to do it, but I know that the fire department, specifically after they heard about the success that they were having at the memorial building, was like, well, how can we get a hold, like, their internet's so bad. They were initially set up to be like more of a command center for all sorts of emergency management because their internet is so bad they're limited with their resources.
yeah, it's really.
I could just probably I'm glad the paper's not here. Shouldn't be telling people that, but no, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, our rural town halls are better connected than the Hibbing Fire Department.
Yeah. So it's like I tried. I think that's something that the chief needs to really bring up with the city.
Needs to push,
Yeah, he needs to push that.
Well, it seems like there could be some like homeland security money or something for that
Right.
as well.
Right, and I tried to look for some grants, and I didn't really find federal grants are so hard to go after in the first place. So if it's not, I mean, this is a project that's like, okay, maybe $10,000 or $12,000. It's like, you should be able to scrape it together. At
And
the
what
local
would
level.
that money actually buy? So what actually needs to be bought?
Basically just fiber being run into the facility and wired
From the
throughout.
street.
Because
Yeah,
the
from the
node
street.
is down by
It's
the
right there.
armory, if you know where the Hibbing Fire
Yeah.
Department
So
is.
it's labor and it's
So
the
it's getting
expenses
the
of
fiber from the armory down to the fire department.
Just like a half a block or something.
But there's still a construction cost there.
Yeah.
Was
It
under
seems
10
odd to
grand?
me that the city would not prioritize a $12,000 investment
Right.
to get the firehouse
Right.
fiber.
but it's not if you lived here, you wouldn't find it.
So
It is
that-
odd, but
when the
it's a
Northeast
reality.
Service Co-op Middle Mile project came along and everyone had to sign up to get connected, some communities were behind the curve and didn't realize the opportunity they had to get connected by that project, and Hibbing was one of them. I know that's the fire department in Evelyn, it's the same thing, and they just complained about Northeast
It'll be
Service
$100 a
Co-op.
month, you know, right?
Or yeah, it's
You know.
too expensive, and now looking back at it, they could have got the construction paid for and be just paying the monthly cost to have the service that they need now. So there's a real misconception, I think, that I've been trying to change about that project. No, that's there to benefit you, but now the grant money's not there to pay for your construction costs, so you have to pay your construction costs, but you can get connected, and they have figured out ways to give cheaper monthly fees by working with CTC you know, so, yeah.
Everyone in their own time, right? You know,
Yep.
they figure it out, then it becomes more of a need. And
Right.
So so what about in the libraries? And tell us a little bit about how that connectivity
Mhm.
has, because that's kind of the same
Yeah,
theme, right?
yeah. So we also, our group worked on getting the Wi-Fi hotspots into the libraries. We got 20 for the Hibbing Library, and every time I go in there now, they're always checked out. Like they're being utilized really well. And then also, I work with the Chisholm group, and I think they bought 10, and they're just always checked out too. They're on waiting list. So I think it's a really successful project. I know there's one thing that happened recently. I guess PCs for People switched over from that ZTE, but I think that's part of like a national thing because ZTE was like accused
band of espionage.
Yeah, spying on American citizens. Yeah, ZTE is.
But don't worry, Trump is getting him back in.
Yeah.
Maybe that's coming up
Can't
today.
make that up.
Yeah, so ZTE is like a Chinese company, and I think
Putin could be talking about it, you know, later.
But the
They're
Chinese
banned,
company.
yes. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
so that's why I think PCs for People don't use them anymore, and I think the more recent
Plus they've been melting.
have they been? Yeah, that's not good either. But I think the ones that you have now are a little bit more expensive. So I mean, in the future, that might, if they want to get more, get replacements, that might be a little bit of a barrier. But I don't think it's too much of a
It went from
barrier.
like 50 to 120.
Yeah, yeah. But I don't know. The project's going really well. I mean, there's, and I think we knew that it was going to be that way. It's people have a need for being able to access the internet from home for all sorts of different reasons. I think it's going to be really helpful, like if people are running businesses from home, or if they're doing schooling from home. That there's definitely a population within Hibbing of where poverty is a major issue, and so for those kids or even young adults to have access to internet from home. It might even make them feel better about themselves because they don't have to go to the McDonald's or to the local library to always use the internet, and it can make them internet's becoming and is so normalized now, and to not have access to it from your home can maybe stigmatize you.
And we have we're the, next to Bloomington, I think now, we're the biggest city with land in Minnesota,
Mhm.
so we have a large rural population that has horrible access, so those kids are having to sit in parking lots.
Yeah,
do their homework.
and so we're still working on that with the other group that's trying to go after federal funds. We've had some setbacks there. I don't know if we want to talk about that here at all, but yeah, the feasibility study we're still going at. I mean, like, it was a big blow when the state of Minnesota didn't pass any major legislation to get border-to-border broadband funding through. I know that's no secret to you folks. So we kind of had to revamp what we were trying to go after, because the standards for the speeds that are eligible for that grant are way different than for the federal guidelines. I think it's 10 download, 1 up or something. You have to be under that to be eligible for the federal grants. So we've pieced off different regions that still are in that. Like Cherry, I think, is one of the major areas, and I think there's still parts of eastern Hibbing, maybe that southern and eastern Hibbing. There's still blocks of space where Great Scott Township, yeah, and so we're hoping to, get federal funding to increase broadband access in those regions through a partnership with, I believe it's a USDA grant. I can't remember off the top of my head, and then our local provider partner that we choose to team up with. Hopefully, we've been getting some good feedback from Paul Bunyan Communication, and I believe CTC as well. I mean, there's some really great collaborations that I think we can put together to increase access. And then
We're gonna, I think, bring the consultant
yeah.
the last week in September, the first week in October. All our stakeholders, for the most part, have public meetings. So we're gonna kind of do a road show and talk about the results and do some meetings with staff level at the county, at the agency, kind kind of just get the word out about the feasibility study and really do a push around that week that she's here.
Let us know when, because we have an event that week, we have pajama party at the end of that first week in October. So let us know when you have the exact dates that you'll be.
Yes, because we want to hit the school boards because they have been somewhat disengaged from these projects, but benefits them the most, getting the rural out, getting the broadband out in those rural areas. So I've been trying to kind of come up with a roadmap for that week and how we can hit the most people, get the information from the most people, you know, invite the legislators to some of these meetings and try to get a big push, because it sounds like that USDA grant opening will be in January. So if a project's gonna be put together, it's gonna happen over the early winter.
Yeah. And I think we're gonna do it, and it's gonna be great. We're gonna we're gonna get people interested.
I'm a little more re-energized. I was
Yeah.
feeling down after the no state thing, but then
Yeah.
now I'm feeling like, oh, there's maybe a little dot of light.
Well,
So are you, when you say the USDA grant, are you talking about this, is that the same 600 million that we heard about at the task force? Is that the federal, the new stimulus? Is that what you're talking
We
Yeah.
about?
met with Dominic, the
Yeah.
USDA broadband rep, and I missed the beginning of that call, but he was really interested in the work we're doing and the fit that some of our project areas might have.
Yeah, and I think it is part of the $600 million that the feds are putting towards rural broadband.
Brad Finstead addressed the broadband task force earlier this week
Yeah?
and talked about, I think the same pot of money.
Okay.
Different words go around it, but, and they're still trying to sort out the role of states and whether it'll be block grants or who gets it. And yeah, it
So
sounded like there's a lot of decision making still
It's
to
up
go.
in the air or whatever, but
But you need to be ready when they
Yeah.
announce it,
Yes.
because then
Right.
they'll have a very
it'll
short
be
time
quick.
frame.
Yeah, so we're gonna keep in touch with Dominic. We'll probably bring him out here at some point. We've just had phone conversations so far.
Yeah.
What is the price tag on that feasibility study, do the whole thing?
Oh, my folder's in the car.
To
But-
do the project area?
$6 million to do fiber to the home in Cherry Township.
Just Cherry's Township.
It was, I feel like it's 60 when you look at everything, including overbuilding the served areas.
Which you'd
So-
have to do to create the backbone to get to the ends, is that the idea?
Well, not if CTC's with NESC. There's some models that they've been working on with Diane, the consultant. So they're willing to look at, with some local buy-in, like almost neighborhood type, you know, or like a Cherry Township chunk or a Vulcan chunk or a Griggs, you know, I don't know. You know, we need to get some more buy-in before we take it to that next level, I think, from the local people.
Talk a little bit about the experience or the effort to create a collaboration among these towns. You know what I mean? To get the players in the room, to have the townships work together, Great Scott and Cherry and Hibbing and stuff, to do a project like this. Was that a new experience for this region? How did that work?
Well, and they've really dropped off.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's.
Well, I mean, it was sort of like, I mean, we went to them and we were like, you
Them
know,
being
the city of Hibbing, you know,
School
when we,
boards,
the
the
school boards, the
townships.
townships. We sort of went to them, you know, asked for their buy-in, and then we
To match the feasibility study money.
match the feasibility study money.
so they did put in money.
Yes, they
In
all
the
did.
beginning,
Yeah.
school board, or the city never, or they participated in the feasibility, but not
Yeah.
in the other
And
stuff.
Jen
like-
Sockman's been involved.
Yeah.
She's been very involved. I mean,
Right.
compared to
And-
some.
I mean, in the
Right.
school board, we had a person involved, and then all of a sudden he just like disappeared.
Yes.
Just, that stalled us really during the first round.
But we keep everyone updated. So the
Mhm.
three superintendents are always getting the updates from the group and some of their tech people. The townships, French Township, Cherry Township and Vulcan always have a rep there, but the Vulcan rep isn't actually on the town board. And the town board was the one, you remember at the Chisholm meeting, they sat at a table by themselves and thought this was pretty stupid.
Which one was that?
The Chisholm one.
Yeah.
They have their own ideas about how to solve everything, do everything.
So, I mean, it's good to take this regional approach,
Mhm.
but I just, like, you can hear people screaming, we need broadband, the legislators say it, and then when you're actually at that level trying to implement things and move things along, people just don't show. Don't, like, right?
Yeah, I think that's pretty apt. I think we knew from the beginning that this was going to be a long process, and you wanted to make sure that you had people that were really excited, and because steam runs out, you know, especially when you have setbacks and you have people that are ready and willing to, you know, when you have a step back, just to say, okay, reevaluate where we go from here. And we have that with our core team. I think that the cities are overall supportive of the idea. They just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
They want us to do it. They're like, here's the money, just go do it, kind of idea. And so that's what we're trying to do. And I think that once we, like, when our consultant Diane comes, we'll be able to get, county and city and
I know.
whoever there
We're
that
gonna
we
do-
need. We'll be able to get the buy-in. It's just making sure that we have a product that is presentable for them to be, okay, yes, we're on board, do whatever you need to do. We're backing you.
So just to make sure I'm understanding, so that the partners put in money to help with the feasibility study. Was that a pledge? Was that when
It
you
was
say
approved by each individual board.
in other words, was that money to fund the build, or what was their?
It was
Fund
a
the
feasibility
study.
study.
The study.
Just fund the study. So that was the match to our grant.
Yep.
In other words.
And then everyone that put money in can have, has a representative that gets on the meeting notices and can get involved. It's really come down to, a lot of the times it's Tom, myself, Betsy, Steve Georgie, and then the Cherry Township bulk. We're always kind of there, and then some other people kind of come and go. So that's why I thought, at this point, we need to go back out direct. We need to go to each stakeholder and present where we're at. And then maybe that'll re-energize. We can get that core team back together to work on an actual project. Whoever seems the most interested, I guess.
When you have that number in hand, you say, okay, for
Yes.
this number, this is what
It's
you will
real.
get. And some place, just like the Northeast Service Co-op deal, some people say, yes, that makes sense. Cherry Township seems like they're pretty excited about it. And yes, they'll do it. But then parts of Hibbing, whether the city council decides to do that or not, would be more of a question. So, okay, we're gonna do this area here, not do this area here. And just 3 years from now, people in East Hibbing may say, hey, we need to do this.
Well, people in rural Hibbing are strongly,
A real strong project is rural
Voicing.
Hibbing into Cherry Township,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
with a little bit of great stock.
absolutely,
That is-
yeah, that would be,
I
Yeah.
mean, it's core range. I mean, a lot of people live there. It could benefit multiple people, so.
Yeah,
there's some in-home businesses.
you just start drawing lines and
Yeah,
say
there's
who's in
businesses.
and who's not. and-
Right. So.
And
How
that's
did you feel about Diana Neon and the consultant? How did that work? How was she as a
I'm
partner?
usually unimpressed with consultants, and she's kept us going. She came and presented to the St. Louis County Board and did a stellar job. She's been facilitating with Steve Georgie a Dig Once policy at St. Louis County. So she built the grant writing into our budget, so like she can help us with the actual grants, whether it would have been border to border or this USDA one.
yeah.
She seems really ready to go the extra mile.
Yeah, I mean,
That's one of the reasons that I was supportive of picking her. I think she was a little bit more expensive than some like more boilerplate type of companies that are consulting companies that just have like a set, like, here's what we're gonna do for you, like blocked off like steps. She was more willing to, it seemed to me, more willing to navigate the system with you when there's roadblocks. She's willing to brainstorm with you on what we need to do to keep going. So that's one of the reasons that I was supportive of her, and I think that it's really important that she's flexible and she's willing to brainstorm with you ideas of how to overcome obstacles that are set, because there's just always obstacles when you're trying to do a long-term project like this.
And one of the things in the feasibility studies that's been really relatable for the people I've been sharing this information with is, we know where unserved, underserved, and served areas are via the maps, right? But she's taken our road system and classified them served, unserved. So you can be like, oh, I know that person on that dirt road over there, and they're on a red line. Like it's taking it to another level, that the unserved, underserved information, which I think will help when we go out into the communities and they see that. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna do, for each community, they're gonna have their own summary, and then how it connects in with the bigger picture, so.
It's been kind of a jamming it together, with the different communities. There's no doubt that that's been a challenge. It's one thing to look at the geography, but the politics of it and the different geographies is a lot to navigate. And I think the people on the team know a lot of that, so it can really help Diane with it, and are patient enough to know that it's gonna take a while and what you have to do to be ready to really present the results to the elected officials. Because it's a big bite for them, whatever, 6 million, 3 million, any million is gonna be a big number for those local leaders to consider.
But if the project is like 6 million, we are hoping that the federal government, if we can get a grant, would cover more than half of that, like
Yep.
4 million of it potentially.
Yep, half, that would be great, even if it was half. And then, CTC's thrown out a general number of 20% of the project they're willing to put in.
Yeah.
That leaves 30%, even if you had a $10 million project, that's a $3 million gap. Now you start thinking, how do the local entities come
Right.
in with, it's the agency, the county, the local government,
It's a lot more
maybe
palatable.
something unique, like an owner-initiated assessment, how does that, and then it ends up being smaller pieces for all those different entities, and it actually seems doable. And I think that's what we wanna try to convey in the end of September.
What I see possibly happening going forward is that we're gonna have like 3 different project areas that are gonna be smaller, and then portions of our groups are probably gonna divide and try and get those projects done, potentially. Maybe it'd be nice to have Diane write the grants for all 3 of them, but I don't know, she probably didn't include that to write 3 grants, she probably just included in her budget to write 1 grant.
Which would be a win, we have the information,
Yeah.
There's ways to.
And yeah, if we really needed to, we could
help us
probably,
apply for other grants too, or.
right. And, who knows, you and I could potentially, I'm not gonna volunteer you, but maybe I could even
Right.
sit down and try and
There are,
write a grant. I've never done
we're
it, but,
now at a capacity where, with some help.
yeah, some guidance.
Is the partner mix the same? In terms of the provider component for all the different pieces. So if you have a large puzzle, then there are some, as you say, some breakoutable components. Are the provider partners the same for all components of the big
It would be
piece?
likely, I think it would be likely for that, it's either, but
Well,
who knows?
we've engaged with all of them.
Yeah.
When last time Diane was up, there was meetings with MediaCom, she's talked with Paul Bunyan, she's had more in-depth talks with Joe at CTC, so there's, Northeast Service Co-op has offered up their middle mile in an in-kind type of way, so, moving along, by no means to an answer, but.
We are moving along to an answer, but we don't have the answer
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I think that if we did them in different portions, it would be up to that individual group to make that determination, but I think in all likelihood, it would probably be the same service provider, but we don't know yet.
Yeah,
right
if
now.
MediaCom wanted to take a little chunk, cool, great,
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we haven't gotten to that road yet. Diane's working on getting those specific project areas. I don't know, has she completed that yet?
No, she was gonna overlay what she thought would be eligible for that federal
the 10,
grant
yeah.
over our project area, that was another.
But that's
step
super
she was
helpful.
doing.
Right,
Yeah.
that's what we're having her do. So she's, getting, because the areas changed when the state grant was gone, so we had to completely reconfigure what project areas are even eligible in our region. So she's working on that right now, getting the specific areas that we think that we can target and go after.
How did it change?
Because the state grant, the areas that qualify are areas that had higher speeds actually. So like if you had, if a region said that they could get 25 megabytes per second, they would still technically, I believe, or under, they would still technically qualify for the state grants as being underserved and be able to get money. But because that pot of money isn't there anymore, we have to go after the federal level, which the requirements or guidelines are so much lower. It's only 10, so it really shrank up the area that's
Who got
eligible.
bumped out?
Well, we still have the study information for the whole area, but
So-
now she's gonna overlay that, so it's gonna be the more rural of rural that are
Right.
eligible
So I mean,
for
it's
that
the
federal.
areas that got bumped out are areas that are 10 to 25. So it's you know, and that's certain chunks of Hibbing, that's
Right.
certain chunks of Chisholm,
Cities.
And it's probably even certain chunks of rural areas, because, but I mean, there's another aspect to that that's kind of strange is that, what is said to be served or underserved is told to the governing agencies by the provider, which there should be some regulations there, I think, of how to check that, but. So,
You mean self-reporting data from their providers?
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
For they can say that a place gets up to 100, but maybe you live there and you're like, no, it doesn't.
Or one day a year. or
Yeah,
something.
one day a year or something like how is that?
That's where I live.
When nobody's on it.
Right,
I live in that place.
right.
So, I mean, it's really hard because it's all moving, but the information and the guidance and just like, I was just making a comment about one of the people in our feasibility study group. I say like on his broadband knowledge, he was at 2 and now he's probably a 7, like this whole process has just helped the region become more educated on the issue, so.
And Diane's a real good teacher.
Yeah, I mean, and to have her go back to the county board whenever we did that and just plant that seed, like, we're here, we're studying this, we're gonna be back, like, I think that was good.
You guys, are you doing a project next year with the legislature? I mean, you're still lobbying and stuff?
So the Minnesota Rural Broadband Coalition is going to be reconvening next week to look at what happened, how did it go last year, and talk about how they want to organize themselves for the 2019 session. And there certainly was a lot of satisfaction at the achievement to get a bipartisan bill, passed, introduced, passed, supported in both houses, and it was just unfortunate given the larger dynamics at the state house that funding was vetoed. But
What was the number that was due?
$15 million,
Which is still lower.
the task force recommended 73 per biennium. Is that right? Per biennium, right? Not annual, right? 73 per biennium.
Right.
And that was based on a calculation the task force did about what the cost would be to achieve our broadband goals statewide. And so it's kind of a soft number, but they did the math, and so in order.
By 2026, we would meet that. goal.
Right. Yeah. So that's where
$100.
that number came from. And the bill that was actually co-authored, and Sandy Lehman was one of the lead authors for that, was for $50 million. Was the original bill, and then it came out of the legislature, and I think the governor came in at 30, so 15 was the number that was passed by the legislature.
So the bills was 50 million of both the GOP, House and Senate, and then, but when their leadership set their targets, they got 15 out of leadership, so. The 50 million was kind of a smoke screen to begin with, but it's over,
Yeah.
so.
Was the coalition for the city coalition, the greater Minnesota cities and those coalitions, were they supportive of what you did?
Yeah, they were key members of the Minnesota Rural Broadband Coalition, include the League of Minnesota Cities, Association of Minnesota Counties, the Minnesota Townships, Minnesota Association of Townships, whatever their acronym is. School boards. I mean, it's the coalition consists now of about 70 entities. This year, the first year, Nancy Hoffman, who's the EDA director, served as chair, and she presented to the task force this week. She did a really nice job.
Yeah, where's she from?
Chisago.
Oh, that is,
Chisago
okay,
County,
that's right.
Chisago County, yeah.
And Rams joined this, right?
Yep,
Mhm.
So we do have a-
Steve Giorgio was a participant, and so at this point, we'll see what they decide next week. But my expectation is that what my sense is that there was a good feeling about the ability of the coalition to come together, to get the bipartisan authorship, to work with the legislative leadership, and that there'll be some energy to recommit. You know, it involves, you know, the coalition needs to pay the lobbyists, and so there needs to be some fundraising done among the coalition members, and that's kind of the question's going to get called last
Who's
week.
the lobbyist?
Her name is Judy Erickson. She's a registered lobbyist at the Capitol, and she's had a portfolio of clients over the years, and I think she did a really good job. I mean, she got a big fat list of authors and bipartisan and stuff. So the foundation did play a role in this first year through a grant to I'm trying to remember, Winthrop Economic Development Authority or agency was the fiscal agent for the grant that we made to help pay for the lobbyist. And the foundation is going to step down our support of that advocacy this next round, so that will require other members of the coalition to step up.
Should we try to get a push for Northeast school districts or cities to participate in there? Because I know, we have Rams is there now. Should we do maybe a?
Might wanna
Get the
wait
word
till
out.
after next week and see what the
Okay.
direction is.
Yeah, but that would be something we could at least plant the seed on.
We did have good I mean, there were, Steve was there, and a few other people from this region we had a broadband day on the Hill, or the coalition organized that. Judy's did a nice job, and there was a fair representation from this region in that last March.
I can't remember, do you know what the numbers were for the previous year of dollars allocated for the border
It was 20.
It was 20, so it went down to 15. And then in years before that, it was like at 12 or something?
It's
Yeah.
been as high as 35
Right,
and as low as, I think
20 was
20 is
lowest.
probably the lowest.
Yeah.
really, so it just keeps going down.
Well, it's kind of,
Yeah, okay. Well, we need more money now, that's
So I
the point
think-
there, obviously,
This is an aside, but you should give me a question to ask governor candidates, or any candidates, if you could please, because a lot of chambers do forums, and I can put that out to my, I can put that out to my colleagues at Chamber World, so.
it's interesting, the other day, there was, on NPR, there was a thing about urban versus rural, and how the DFL has lost rural, and was their premise. And the first 3 or 4 callers said, well, we need better broadband in rural areas. Somebody's, whoever can deliver that would be on the right path, kind of,
Yeah,
And so Carrie Miller said, wow, I need to get smarter about broadband, and I need to ask all the gubernatorial candidates questions about broadband. It was pretty interesting.
yeah.
And of course, everyone says, it's
Everybody's
really important, and it's
you know,
public-private partnerships, and then,
And then
Yeah.
trying to put that partnership together is like pure hell.
Yeah, but especially with the uncertainty, if you knew that, okay, if we can raise 50%, we can get 50%.
Yeah.
That would make it
Yeah,
easy, but
the
then,
uncertainty
okay,
of
we've done all
that.
that, now we have to write a grant and hope. And Frank, I give credit to the state, the providers really have been supportive of them as they've administered the grant dollars. I think there's been questions about how they've decided where they go. But if you look at those, and I was just looking the other day, like the cost per passing of each house for it's very widely scattered. It
Yeah.
wasn't like a big cluster of them at X dollars.
No, I remember I did an analysis, it was like 4 something up to 12 something a passing.
Yeah, and so and the geographies and so on. So they have a lot of considerations in the legislation that they have to, it's gotta be provider diverse and geographically diverse and,
Scalable.
so it's that's a real challenge for them, but it'd be nice if you met some criteria that you would get the funding.
Mm-hmm.
And it would just make it easier to get people to commit and do all this work.
It'd be nice if we could do something where it wasn't just like every year or every 2 years you're trying to decide how much you get to broadband. You can do it for like 10, scalable.
So the task force is in the process now of completing a first draft of its annual report to the governor, and this will be the final report because the term of the task force is coterminous with the current governor's term. So one of the recommendations that is currently under consideration is to, of course, continue funding for the Office of Broadband Development, indeed, but to put that funding into baseline funding, so it's not dependent on a biannual cycle. So it's not an extra add-on. I need to learn the words about how to say that. I don't know how to talk about it. Base budget, is that it? Base budget? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Maybe
that
we
makes
should
a
hear
lot of sense.
from Julie about that business
Yeah.
stuff.
So we did a second round of one-on-one digital marketing consulting. On this final, the first round, we helped 7 businesses. We provided a contest format where they answered a couple of essay questions, and then by committee we chose that first 7. We then got allocated some more funding for second round, and we were able to help the other 16 businesses that applied for that. Of those, we this time around we helped Frostbite Furniture, Iron Range Makerspace, MLK Fitness, Silver Birch Gift Shop, and also I think that was Toner Supply or Toner Planet. She's got a double business. Ohana Therapeutic Massage, Bailey's Courtyard Cafe, Flom Design and Photography, Main Salon. We did the Hibbing Area Chamber of Commerce. Soho
Yay,
Arts.
good for you, Lori. Way to go.
She's got a whole
Yeah.
to-do list.
All right. Yes.
Sitting here right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
where's
get to that in a second. We'll have some feedback from you guys. Soho Arts, Fraboni's, Electric Power Door, Palmer's, Boomtown Hibbing, Sammy's Pizza, and Lily Lane Embroidery.
Lots of downtown.
We did, yeah. There was a lot of downtown kind of buzz about this. When they heard of the first 7, a lot of them were really disappointed, and so we went back. They were pretty excited that they were chosen. A couple that just stick out, again, Electric Power Door is a good one. Each business completed a digital marketing action plan where they went over their mission, vision, their 3 uniques, and then everything that they kind of talked about. So they have a working plan after this is complete to kind of keep going with it. So Electric Power Door actually read about the first round in the press release and asked, hey, how can I do this? And contacted Molly Solberg, our provider consultant out of Duluth, and said, hey, can I hire you to do this? I've heard great things about you. And she reached out to me and said, hey, do we have any slots left? And I said, yeah, we do. And to have somebody that's, actively engaged, it really went a long way. Electric Power Door has been in Hibbing for forever, 100 years, I mean, it feels like. They produce, which is really interesting, blast doors. So they work with like NASA, the military, they do a lot of mining doors, things like that. And the son is just coming out of college, and he is working on a succession plan with his father. And so Molly was able to get the marketing guy and then the 2 owners into the same room to collaborate. And during those meetings, they recreated some branding and created a logo, ripped through the website to just give it a fresh look, and then they really looked at who their target market is and kind of got back down to basics with that one. And we've got a pretty good relationship with them, and I've been working with them just a little bit one-on-one after the fact. So there's a huge success there. Palmer's Tavern was a little leery. We had Boomtown moving in, and so we had 2 competing businesses, and Palmer's was basically kind of the burger joint of the area here. And then you've got Boomtown coming in. So how are they going to compete with something shiny and keep their business going. And so Molly really worked with them to redo their website, to get a better Facebook presence, and to just kind of, you know, what makes them unique. And they've really kind of changed their business model. And, you know, I can give kudos to the owner. She looks at her financials and saw that, hey, things are declining. And we were able to step in right at the right time with this consultant and really help them out through a time that they were a little, you know, uneasy and uncertain with. And so we had a great one there. Another one that I wanted to talk about was Sammy's Pizza. Sammy's has a lot of locations in northeastern Minnesota, and so again, just helping this Hibbing business, it also helped all their other locations, and they were also going through a big change in their marketing, and we're hiring. And I got a little testimonial from the guy here that owns the Sammy's here, and he goes, first, I gave recommendations. This is an email written to Molly. First, I gave you recommendations out there, and they applied those to my microsite, especially for mobile. Then Alex and I convinced our group that our landing site page, mysammys.com, was crap and needed to be completely rebuilt, which my ad company had been saying anyways. So do I have any additional time with you? Can you check out the changes? And truthfully, I'd like to have you look at my Sammy's proposal of structure as well. You've been an invaluable resource. I loved what you helped us with. A couple of questions. Do I give a testimonial? Are you available for hire? Should we decide to bring you on? Without even being in the room, you had them swooning. And so they had kind of a corporate headquarters without Molly even meeting them, was able to get into the door and go, look at what we did here. Let's apply this, you know, across the board. So it really, you know, was really helpful that way. I guess to just give personal like feedback with how you felt with working with Molly and what she kind of did for the chamber a little bit, kind of some changes and what you guys kind of worked on, I guess. If
I don't remember like all of it.
yeah, but just some highlights, maybe just kind of.
I guess the one that really sticks out for me is just she went over the Google Analytics. There's so much out there and kind of important aspects to look at. That was kind of helpful for me. She was great.
Yeah. Just kind of giving them a leg up. They do so much marketing, and why not just help from the start? Because again, if any business comes in here, you know, and asking questions, Melissa can then help. And so again, just kind of getting to that root of where all the businesses are coming from and helping these guys out. I think that was kind of why we went down that lane in picking the Hibbing Chamber, you know. I guess some other ones, you know, it was unfortunate because we picked these essays from the first group that we did. There were a few that we kind of knew we didn't know if this was going to be a good match for them. Yeah. And I think that our gut feeling was right because, you know, one that I was really nervous about was Bailey's Courtyard Cafe, and I had a call after a call with Molly, like in tears, like I can't get them to come to meetings. I've driven from Duluth and they're too busy to even meet with me, and so she'd sit there and literally just kind of watch the woman work, and she didn't want to take the time, and she set the time up, so this was all on her. This wasn't on Molly's schedule, this was on hers. And so again, like, you know, you could tell by the essays who was in and who was out. And so I think going forward, if we ever were to do something like this again, you know, with a round 2, I would reopen it up for some other applicants to try to get in there, you know, and to see, just so that we're not just picking because you applied. And we could kind of tell those people because they had small.
Everything's changed with her now.
Yeah.
So you just don't know, you know,
Yeah, you never
especially
know.
with those small businesses and where they are in their experience as, as a business owner.
Is that a
It
family-run
changes.
business?
Yeah, and she is, and she had moved here from Bemidji and was overwhelmed for the first couple years, but she's in a different place now. It's just been interesting to watch. Yeah.
Yeah.
They have the best food.
And
She
they
has
do
be-
have a presence. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just because I look at it, so then I see it, you know.
Yeah.
But,
But I mean,
it pops
sort
up
of-
on my Facebook.
I don't know what happened, but I just, there's a real difference in her attitude and stuff in the last 3-4 months.
Which
So,
is like right after
Thank
Molly and
God.
her
Yeah.
worked together basically. So
yeah.
I can only talk about, you know, the struggles Molly had, and she really, you know, went above and beyond to again try to tailor this consulting to meet their needs. So what she did is, because they didn't do a lot of one-on-one, Molly just wrote a whole presentation out and just said, here are all my recommendations, so if she does decide to use that going forward, she still has that information. And Molly just kind of felt that was her way of fulfilling her end of the contract.
Right.
Didn't want to just leave that up in the air, and she didn't feel right taking the money if she didn't actually produce something with the business, because I couldn't get that action plan that we had with all the other businesses. So some real positive things, you know, Iron Age Makerspace, Andrew works with all our business owners and startups up there, and so to get you know, similar model with the Hibbing Chamber, like if you can get to the one person that's helping everyone, like it's just gonna spiral. So I don't even know the effect that, you know, his working with Molly has helped all these other businesses there.
Yeah.
You know, not to mention he's a startup, and so any additional help that he can get was, you know, very welcomed, and he spent a lot of time on his essay questions, and again, you could just tell because he took what Molly said and ran with it. So that was really neat. So yeah, and then, you know, Molly just wanted to write a little thing. She said to Lori and I in an email, well, I just can't tell you how much I have enjoyed getting to know these businesses and helping them improve their online digital marketing. It's definitely been a true highlight in my career. Each business is so unique, and the folks I've met I consider friends, and we will be keeping in touch, including the Hibbing Chamber team, the best. So again, she just creates these personal relationships, and it just doesn't end here. So, and I know she said, you know, a lot of people have reached out to me and asked me, and you know, questions, and she, you know, again is willing to give that pro bono, you know, just to make sure that this was successful, and appreciated the support that we gave her as well. So she was fantastic, and that kind of leads into our third project, which we did.
Before you go into that, just a quick question.
Absolutely.
So, just from my understanding, under this model, does Molly have a certain number of hours with each business?
Yep.
How does that work?
Yep, so Molly had $1,500 per business, and with that, she had 4 to 5 meetings, which ended up being about 20 hours per business owner that she worked with them. And she created a big PowerPoint presentation after their first, you know, kind of meet and greet intro, where then she laid out, hey, this is what I'm seeing, and so they have, you know, again, something tangible to
That you would then
read,
give to them?
Yep, and so she emailed that presentation to them and went over it with them in their second meeting. And then from there it was, okay, what things can we tackle in our remaining hours, and what do you feel is most important? This is what I feel most important. They get together and then come up with that action plan and actually get some stuff done. I've got tons of testimonials from around one businesses. They were like so excited to be chosen. I guess one of them that sticks out was, you know, Andy's Auto Sales. You know, a young startup, 20-year-old guy, like, hey, I'm gonna sell cars. He goes, and he's even, you know, in his 20s, he should be tech savvy, social media savvy, and again, we're not all like that, you know, just because we're younger, millennials. And he goes, this changed my business completely. It brought me out of the Stone Age with digital media advertising. I wish nothing more than to spend more time with Molly. So there's a lot of things there that, you know, again, you know, Cobb Cook Grocery, an older gentleman, she helped put together a website. And so it's just a matter of, like everyone said, you know, Molly's a genius. She just explained things to me in a way that I can understand them. We can read things over and over again, but if we don't understand what those words mean, it doesn't go anywhere. And Molly's able to just kind of really relate and bring that down to a level.
Have you in your shop, when you do all this, thought about or had experience with or used the social media breakfast model idea that's out there as maybe a potential follow-on to this to help people stay connected?
Potentially. I've talked a lot with Molly. Actually runs the social media Twins Port social media. I think they have they're close to 800 members in that group. She says it's a tough uphill battle to get it started, but once you have it running, it can run itself. But what you need to do is create a model that's sustainable, not by one person.
Yes.
And so she reaches out and has this way of kind of bringing everybody together. Although she finds it, you know, it's a challenge because it's a lot of hours just managing the social media pages and the how do you get the presenters and get good quality information, and how do you get people to show up and know about it, you know. She said that took a few years to even get that, you know, kind of off the ground, but once it did, it's kind of, you know, spiraled into this awesome thing that everybody kind of hears about in the Duluth area, at least. I could see something, you know, again, Duluth a little bit more populated all in one area. It's easier to find places. For us, it's like, okay, well, where do we meet and where do we have these? We don't, that's one thing we ran into with our, we did marketing seminars. Where do we hold them? Nobody really had a space for us. Unfortunately, the Hibbing Community College, which we utilize a lot, is under construction. So that was out of the mix when we were trying to find a venue. And so how do we have a centralized location? Because if people are going to Ely and going to here, like, you're only gonna get those followers in those towns. And so it just won't kind of get that fire like it does in Duluth, where you've kind of got this following that just has to go like a mile or two out of their way to a different location versus, you know, setting these up in a lot of the rural communities that we have here. And then to find the technology, you can find space, but to be able to have a presentation and a projector, I mean, you think it's so simple, but it's not that easy to find.
But
that
Bar
out
was
there.
great. That was a
Oh
great
yeah,
place to
yeah,
do it.
definitely.
So we were at
will.
Bar Engineering, and they have a couple of conference rooms, and it turned out.
What community center?
That was
It's
in Hibbing.
Oh.
Yeah, it's in the
I
industrial.
thought you said at the bar was great.
Oh,
All
yeah,
right.
right.
Yeah.
That was great.
The bar.
That was great too, but no, Bar Engineering, and they have a brand new office, it's beautiful, with the technology, and we just gave them their people free admission, made sure they were a part of it. So.
Yep, and that was some of our in-kind, and
Right.
with saving money on the venue and not having to rent that out, we were able to open it up to more individuals for our marketing seminar. So what we did is we did a 3-part marketing series. We did one in March, one in April, and one in May. We wanted to just make sure that we spread it out so that, again, if somebody couldn't come at a certain time, maybe they could make some of the other ones. So we ended up doing it at Bar Engineering. Our first session was with Molly Solberg. We had her come and present, and that one was your website, your #1 sales tool, optimize it for SEO. The description of that one was your website is your #1 sales tool. Learn how to create a website, create content for it, blog, and optimize it to be easily found on the World Wide Web. We had 20 sign up for that. We had 16 attend. With that, I got some great feedback and some testimonials from the evaluations that we had each participant fill out at the end. And so some of those on this particular one was, Molly was a great presenter. She took information that could be scary and intimidating and brought it to an understandable level. Second one was, session was fantastic. Like breaking into groups to see how others would search for your business or organization. And I think that was kind of the biggest like aha moment for everyone. It's like, we know our business in and out, but do others know it? And what are they searching for? You know, one of them was like, oh, I'm a hairstylist and I would search for this. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't. Like, I'd search for this. And so getting that perspective with your peers, I think was super helpful. And everybody kind of was like, I wish we had more time doing the breakout sessions, and Molly was able to walk around into these individual groups and kind of go, well, what have you thought about this? And what about this? And the collaboration between everyone was really neat.
And our goal wasn't to have 50 people in our room.
No.
Our goal was to have
12 to 16.
to 16. And I think we accomplished
Oh,
that.
we
with,
far
yeah.
exceeded that.
Right. But because we wanted more one-on-one
Yep.
with them, because we just feel so much more valuable.
Yeah. And then she said, another one said, Molly was great, energetic, friendly, and her humor makes it easy to listen the whole time. And I think that's something that we look for at the Entrepreneur Fund, and why we have kind of found these facilitators is because some of this stuff is dry and boring, and if you don't bring a little light to it and you don't have a little bit of kind of personality to it, you might as well just watch a YouTube video online. That's about what you'll get from it. Our session 2 was in April on a snowy snowstorm day, so we were like, who's gonna show up to this one? Our presenter was Robert Lilligard from Be Our Guest PR. What's interesting about Robert is he actually has, was it Tourette's? And so he had a tic, and he was really funny about it and made everybody at home about it, and just was like, hey, you know, I have a disability, but I don't let it hinder me, and I can get up in front of a group of people, and I might, so you know, and he's making jokes about himself, but it just made everybody kind of like, hey, we all have little quirks, and you know, we can still be a successful business owner even if we're not, you know, quote unquote perfect, you know. So we talked about that, and his claim to fame is PR. He's all about, and then again, in the age that newspapers are digital, it was really important that we kind of brought this like newspaper meets digital and in a different approach than to just like Facebook website, Instagram, things like that. And so his was photo, writing, and design. Getting content for your company. There are thousands of ways to get your message out, from social media to PR to paid advertising. But getting heard is only part of the equation. Once you have your platform, what are you going to say? How are you going to say it? And how do you make it engaging enough to keep your prospects interested? So we had 23 sign up, and in a snowstorm, we had 18 show up in the morning. And from that, I got some feedback that I enjoyed the activities as they helped me to apply the concepts from the workshops. Again, Robert did breakout sessions, and he went around, again, one-on-one with everybody and made sure that, you know, everything was going, or gave them ideas like, oh, have you thought about this? And so they actually got a little bit of one-on-one throughout that. I love the part about headlines, somebody said. It got me thinking about catchy ways to grab our customers' attention on social. So we talked a lot about how, you know, don't just say like we're hiring, like think of a different way of putting it, kind of in a weird sense. And he and his brother own a bakery in in Duluth. And he said, you know, one of our headlines was mathematician turned baker or something, because his brother was a mathematician. And so it kind of, again, when you see those catchy headlines, it doesn't have anything really to do with the business, but you're like, well, why did a mathematician? So then people read on. And so he really talked about that catching thing and thinking outside of the box on, okay, well, we can write the headline this way, but what about this way? Making it kind of humorous and funny. I appreciated Robert noting that the range is different than other areas and that we need to be aware of the regional differences in our approach. So how we talk to customers in the cities or in Duluth is much different than we talk about our customers here. So we kind of touch base on who's your target market and speak to them in that language and speak to them with that vibe and that feel. Because up here we're a little bit more like that kind of, you know, kind of stuffy way. And so if you, again, you can put some humor and put some life into it, you know, it goes a lot farther. This spurred some personal and professional goals for me. Would love to attend any other sessions from Robert. And so getting those feedbacks, you know, from the Entrepreneur Fund, we're like, okay, well, if we're getting this great feedback, we're going to have other sessions with Robert, and again, just that different approach. Session 3, we had Molly back for utilizing social media, tips, tricks, and killer content. This was a spin-off of her first one with SEO being your website and kind of getting that. This was the next step of that. And so you can't ignore social media any longer. Learn which platform is best for your business, learn how to create killer content, view insights to review content, and learn the basics to create an ad within social media. We had 29 sign up for that one. Molly has a huge following in Hibbing now. We had 21 attend. And I heard another great class. Thank you so much. Molly is awesome, great information. Great job. Came away with an overwhelming amount of renewed ideas and reminders. Thought-provoking in what we need to do and how to make it better. I didn't know what to expect and thoroughly enjoyed it. So again, when people come in like, and they come leaving a review, is pretty awesome. We were able to kill it on the budget, and we had enough to put in a bonus session, and we had Art Unlimited come in from Angora, Minnesota, and they did using your marketing to hire or attract vendors. We had a different presenter. We did the same one up in Ely, and we had Elizabeth Chapman, one of the owners, stepped in for Becca, who was unable to do it. And Becca, I can say, seeing both presentations, nailed it here, and you could tell by the reviews and the evaluations on both. So again, it all comes down, what I'm learning, the presenter and the vibe and the energy that they bring. That goes along a way. We opened it up to just anybody. We had share, come. This one, we didn't have the budget to provide all the food and didn't have to cater and bring that in. In the first 3 sessions, we offered a continental breakfast with coffee and juices and water and a few baked goods. And then we also sent them away with a box lunch from Herbert's and Gerbert's. So they had a sandwich. They were able to go right back to work, and I think that's why we got a lot of people signed up and engaged, they were able to then not go, oh, and then I have to go to lunch, and this is a whole day, versus, hey, this was just a 4-hour, I'm gonna go. And we had a lot of people sit around and speak with Molly and Robert and have lunch and stuff with them. With this one, we just did a continental breakfast, and just not knowing how many, we had 15 attend. And with that presentation, it said, I think it was wonderful, exceeded my expectations. Great content, great energy, very passionate. Great presentation with a lot of energy. Thank you, it re-energized my inner sense to recruit. Another guy said, we hire 1 or 2 people at a time, so this info is only somewhat important to me. However, there was a ton of social and marketing info I found incredibly useful. The hiring info will be valuable as well when the time comes to, as we find it difficult to find good candidates. And that's why we picked this topic. We hear over and over and over again, we can't find people. We can't find qualified people. Like, we can get people in the door, but like, they're not what we're looking for. And so again, they really touched base on how do you project yourself to the outside world, you know, so people want to come and work for you, and they see your culture and they see what your values are, and they can get on board. Because again, we're finding that a lot of people aren't just taking jobs because it's for money. It's because it's not about the money these days. They want to have a purpose, a passion, a cause, you know, within that organization. And that kind of is worth more than money, you know. And so how do we portray that through your marketing to, you know, potential candidates? So the goal of the grant was to have at least 48 attend these sessions, and we killed it. We had 70, which was an average about 17 and a half people per session, and we wanted 12 to 16. So, I mean, it was just, I think it was an overwhelming success. We had just great feedback. People were smiling. I think we had a lot of really good networking time at the beginning, and so we had businesses actually start some B2B and talking, discussing, and meeting, and things like that. So overall, I would say that this was a home run with these marketing seminars here. And again, I don't know if it was just that we split it up. I can tell you that the help with marketing it, you know, Melissa killed it. Having somebody help out and having a partner was huge, and I think that helped. She was so engaged with me, and we would go back and forth, oh, we don't have enough, and the two of us could work together versus a lot of it fell on my shoulders in other areas. And so I can say partnerships are a big thing, and the Hibbing Chamber is a great partner in so.
And we were able to reach people we don't always reach. And you know, it helped some of the really small businesses, and people gave them some resources. I think the biggest problem I found with all the business, and I think the workforce issue is, it touches everything here. So, and it touches us at the chamber. We just don't have enough time to do some of the stuff that we learn. You know, even though Molly comes in, we just like to really just hire her and have her here all the time. So I think everybody, and us, is feeling it, whether they're a big or small business, that it's really hard to keep up what they're learning. And I don't know what the next step to help them is. So having the backup with the seminars was really good, because it can act as a refresher, and we should probably look at next year. And, you know.
And a huge hatch off to bar engineering.
They're great.
We're not quiet. And to let a bunch of strangers come into their building, walk around, use their bathroom, their facilities, and they're still working around us. You know, again, I don't know how many businesses that would allow that to happen. Not once, but 4 times. And then when we were like, hey, we need a bunch, come on in. And the women were always helpful, like setting up coffee and helping us, and, you know, getting cleaned up and all of that. And so, you know, and this was just, hey, they just wanted to help out. And that's really true community, you know, and that's what kind of brought everyone in. And it was really neat that they got to show off their beautiful building to a bunch of business owners, and like, hey, someday you could be like this, and you could have a facility like this. You know, it's just really neat, because a lot of us don't get the ability to walk into a business and get the tour that we did for those 4 sessions. So
Good deal.
And I bet you're kind of unique, Julie, because you're sitting here and you've done programming across the broadband communities, so you've got kind of a comparative perspective that that others don't.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, the Entrepreneur Fund took a little larger role because we were the fiscal here, and so there's some responsibilities there. And,
Oh, that makes sense.
yeah, you know, and so we get involved again. That helps, you know, with billing and stuff. I got updates from Molly because it came through us, you know. In Ely, we weren't the fiscal, so I didn't get a lot of that, and I didn't get a lot of, okay, was that taken care of? You have to kind of hit your I believe button because it's not the same as what you're running here. I also had a little bit more support from my Entrepreneur Fund colleagues, just helping me keep on track and keeping us, you know, Amy, she keeps us on our toes and making sure that we hit these outcomes because, again, we, you know, we say what we're going to do and we do it. And so that's a big thing that the Entrepreneur Fund brings to the table is that we don't just talk to talk. We really want things to be done. And so I can see that as a big difference when we're the fiscal versus when we're not.
Sure, interesting.
So,
Lori, are there other projects that we want to hear about that the committee undertook or attempted or other
Well,
areas of?
Jess is here. But that was in round one.
I mean, that was
She already
round one, and
reported.
I did report on it, yeah,
Yeah.
so I didn't bring anything.
Sorry, no, you don't have to.
I just
but-
came in case you had questions or whatever, but,
Yeah.
did you talk about that there was some like feedback that you got that maybe this would be something to do again or like that you would change something going forward? I remember you talking about in a meeting.
oh,
Yeah,
really?
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Well, and if you don't mind, because Allie and Lana are
Sure.
here for the first time,
So
it'd
what
be
it
interesting
was-
for them to
sure.
hear.
So what it was the idea of engaging high school students and telling them what opportunities are out there for technology. And so appropriately, we held it at the college, and they had 4 sessions where they were able to go and listen from different categories of technology within industries. So technology in the healthcare sector, technology as you know, an IT job specifically, or you know, IT help, if you will. Technology in industrial services, manufacturing, exactly. And then the last
Marketing.
one, thank you, marketing, and what does that look like as an IT, or could you be a social media manager? Or, you know, what does that look like in the future? I mean, companies hire those nowadays, you know, and so just, they touched base, it was went from 8 to 1, and we fed them lunch, and it was super hot up in the college for some reason, because you know, something happened where one of our, you know, heaters, so, yeah, we were scrambling, these poor kids were sitting in a room just sweating. But they got to do some fun things. And presenters from Fairview for the healthcare, our IT, we have an IT networking and securities program at HCC, they presented, that was one of the presenters. Molly actually came and did the social media, and she's been all over. She's awesome. And then the last presenters were from Reman, Detroit Reman. Detroit Diesel, yes. And they actually brought little soldering irons, and they showed the students, and each presenter kind of talked about how they got into IT, or maybe not IT, but technology within an industry. I think it was fun. I know
Big
that
thing was
students
you
enjoyed
don't
it,
have to
so-
leave to get these jobs. They're here in our
Right.
community, and that's a big thing we're seeing is
Right.
children youth think they have to leave to be technology and be up and, you know.
Right, where
And
I have
there's
to
a
go down to
lot
the
of-
cities in order to work at an IT firm or
Yeah.
to work for a big company, and these people are like, no, this is my path, and it didn't look like I thought it was gonna look, and I went into something else, but now I'm working in technology, or I went into technology, but I didn't think I'd work in the healthcare field, or, you know what I mean? I mean, it was really interesting to hear, and I know some of the teachers that came along too were like, wow, this is really good information, not stuff that we thought, you know, and it was a little bit hands-on, but it was quite a bit lecture, so I felt a little bit bad because I listened to 4 sessions, but so that would maybe be something that we could change if we ever did it again. Yeah, there was definite interest, and I think what happens too is that a lot of times, from the college perspective, we bring them to our campus and we show them these hands-on programs, but a lot of times it focuses around healthcare, and a lot of times it focuses around manufacturing. So they never get to see something different. This is a totally different field, and it's a huge field, and it touches on every business and every company, and everybody has has technology, but students don't necessarily think of it in the respect that I could go work at Blandon, or I could go work at, you know, the Fairview Range and be in their technology department. So it was really, I thought it was fun, and we had probably 70 students, I think, is what we ended up with, from different local high schools, and it wasn't as many as we thought we were gonna get, but it was, it's hard to get high schools to buy into sending their students to go do something for a full day. Sometimes too, especially because they get so many offers for that.
Really?
It's horribly hard.
They get offers to host their kids?
You have,
really?
yeah. Well, and I think
think about this, if HCC is asking them to come, and ICC is asking them to come, and then they have a math fair that they wanna go to, and then they have a science fair, and
engineering fair.
And if every school and every class, if they say yes to it all, the students are oftentimes not in class a lot of times. So to get buy-in for 70, I was like, all right, that's great.
To bus
So,
them,
to bus them, it costs money.
So I was gonna ask, what are the costs involved in it? Was it transportation and food largely?
Subs for if they have to send
sure.
a teacher, you know, and then the students are out of class too. So, I mean, it's just, and sometimes it coincides with something else. Oh, we have a sporting event, so we can only send half these students, you know, or to, I don't know.
Parents didn't want them to
So
go.
many things that have to line up. We do our best to get them there, and if we can tag, see, HCC has every year we do a, I can't think of the name of it right now, but we showcase all of our programs, and we invite all of the high schools. It's a Perkins funded event, and if we could tag team or combine it a little bit so that they don't have to come this week and then 2 weeks later come back to our campus for another event, that maybe would be more appropriate. But yeah, but it went well for the
Jesse,
first
what's
time.
your title at SCC? What's your job?
At HCC?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do marketing and admissions.
So do you have a counterpart in the other NEHEAD organizations,
Yep.
right?
Yep, there's
So-
one of me at every one of them.
So this sounds kind of like a special project you took on behalf of HCC? And are there other efforts like this that you're aware of in the NEHEAD?
Every school does their own, not the IT thing. No, that was very, very
That's
special.
what I mean, the IT thing. In putting this on, were you aware that other NEHEAD schools or other community colleges had done something like this?
No, not the technology-based
Not that
one.
they focus on we've been focusing in the region on engineering, really, in terms of technology and
just
fairs
to mention, I think one of the reasons was A, because we're here in Hibbing, and so you were tapping into the local community college, and B, we have an IT networking and securities program, and so they thought it would be a nice fit, because then we could promote that program as well, whereas like Itasca doesn't have that program, Rainey doesn't have that program, Misabi and Vermilion, none of them have that specific program, and so, not that it couldn't fit for them to have a technology day, it just would probably look very different, so, yeah.
And there's funding now, I think, through the Department of Labor and for some IT stuff, so I think we should talk sometime about trying to come up with something with the college. But we clearly don't do enough with IT. It was a surprise to me, like, why aren't we doing more of this, and how can we do it? But the other problem is with the school, there's, like she said, scheduling, you have to be at least, you have to be at least a year out when you set your date.
Yeah, we were really
or you're
surprised
just messed up.
yesterday in Cook to hear that the high school there, is it Northwoods High School, and there's two school districts
Yeah.
there? They don't have
Or
any IT programming in a high school, zero right now, and
Not even like keyboarding.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I was following up, so what's
Good.
going on here,
Yeah.
You can't do anything without it.
right?
Base
Well,
knowledge.
I had typing like in 1990.
Yeah, I know, when they put
So
the
they
like,
took it out of the school.
I know.
We don't, you know what I found with engineering?
They don't type.
Yeah.
But you
do
still
that.
have to
They
be
do
a
if they're sitting-
professional.
Yes, I agree with you, but if
You're a carpenter, you have to go type and do your timesheet online.
But here's the
You
thing,
know, like.
I think the problem is we have a group of champions for engineering, especially within the industry, that have set up some programming to help young people get into those careers and to kind of foster that development across the region. We haven't done that with IT, and we could do it. I mean, we should be doing it.
And there's
I think.
almost synergies,
There is,
technology.
for sure there is,
You know?
for sure. So, and we've done it with, engineering, I'd like to say art, and we've made some strides with art, so I think with IT, it's just to me it was like, oh, this is something we should be working on together, and I think it would be a benefit to our young people, so.
Well, especially when you talk about that essential nature of the IT stuff as part of, in
Yeah.
any industrial setting, every machine, no one's turning a valve anymore, right?
Right.
So,
Well,
Well,
or
and even-
healthcare, or even a small business, you
Even-
heard it with the little tiny businesses that have to do their own IT.
And even
You
what
know?
surprised, I mean, we have an automotive mechanics program, and first year is a lot of diagnostics and learning the components of a vehicle and things like that, but then second year, they move into, like the diagnostics, so it's all, a lot of it is it's computer, it's electronic, and a lot of it is in second year, so.
Excuse me, thank you.
Yeah, you
This is
think of
good
the
information.
guy that sits in that little room at the mines and it's all computer screens and, like operating the whole thing there. you know.
So I wanted to say just one thing before I forget it, because I'll forget it. One thing that the chamber did after or this year at our annual dinner was we decided we give awards every year to exemplary people. We do a lot of PR and stuff on it. It's in the newspaper, and we've got 250 people that we give the award, to. So we gave our awards to Tom, Julie, and to Don Brunette, who couldn't be here today. He wanted to be, but he couldn't be here today. So I think it helped. I mean, that helped to heighten what we did with broadband and what these people are doing, and it helped to show, to really give some support to our programs and stuff. So,
What was
yeah, it
Don's
was
role
really
in the
nice.
project?
He did stuff with PCs for people and with accessibility and
Donated 50 computers.
Mhm.
to
Yeah, we
load-
did 2 PCs for people with
Yeah.
Access North. They're they're a
They do
nonprofit
in-home
that's
care,
in-home home
for
care.
nurses and
Yeah.
stuff.
for
Oh,
people.
right, I
So
remember.
we heard him last time. That was really
Right.
touching story. We
That's
heard last
right.
time. Really.
And again, the interesting thing for me was the regional. We all have our own little broadband community thing, but like when you talk about Sammy's or vendors who did Molly
Vendors.
also, or Don Brunette he's all across the region. I mean, I think he has 500 some employees across the
He has
region.
like closer to 1,000.
Yeah,
or more.
I mean, it's just a growing, as you know, in-home healthcare is a growing field. I mean, what we did here impacted the whole region, not just Hibbing. So, we're not just.
that was really fun to get them involved in the PCs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was-
for
Well, and
us,
then they were a
again,
distribution site too, weren't they?
yeah, they were, yeah,
Well, and then Target heard about it and donated a bunch of printers.
yeah.
And big
Mhm.
copier machines, and he's like, and
What do I do?
so they went and bought cords for it, and so basically everyone got a computer and a printer.
Yeah, and the college helped.
And then,
Mm-hmm.
The college IT department helped people, so
Yep.
it was a really nice.
How many computers were distributed here?
How many did we do? Do you remember?
I think you said you
50
did 2
in that
rounds of 50, right?
yeah.
I think we did more this.
And Don coordinated the recipient piece, who gets these and
Yep.
how do you discern
Yep.
all that? And
Yep.
that's so interesting in every community how different that is, who the partner is, who's,
The first one we selected.
I think the chamber did a lot with selecting too, though.
We did the selection on the first one, so we did a lot of schools, and we did a senior housing area, and so we selected, and then but we distributed out of where Don is, because he had the warehouse space, and he was he wasn't participating, but at that time, he was so excited to find out about it that he came onto our steering committee, and then he did this, we really pushed for a second round.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think it's a win-win for them because they're
Yeah.
trying to raise their profile in the
Right.
community, because they are such a large employer,
It's
but
great
they're
for us,
sort
too.
of like a hidden gem
Yeah.
Yeah.
kind of thing, and so it raises their profile, but
Mhm.
also helps people in the community. And we also help with the economic, or the employment office as well, I think they got.
AOA?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Not
did.
AEOA, it was
The workforce center?
Workforce Center got some
Workforce Center.
computers, so they set up a little lab with a couple in there.
Yeah,
for people,
No, they distribute it to the people who are doing their basic education.
Oh, sure, that's a nice
So getting their,
package.
yeah,
yeah.
so they get their basic education degree or whatever, and they were able to get one of the
Leave with a
pieces.
computer.
Yeah.
So glad we
Get them-
talked
and they
about
also
the
got
pieces
training.
for people, because I'm anxious for Luann, especially who's new, and for Ally to get a, complete
Yeah.
picture of, and that's a real heart piece
And
for
they-
me of this, is the access.
No, I almost cry every
When-
time I talk about
I
it.
know.
Yeah.
Well, and PCs for people set up affordable internet for, access for the computers, so they got a great rate.
Yeah.
One story that sticks out to me is that, we were able to find the Dragon software because somebody couldn't type. And it was a matter of like, they couldn't communicate with family and things like that, so it just opened up a whole new world, shopping all of that kind of stuff. A veteran was able to get, a disabled veteran was able to get a computer, and that just like
And then he
opened
trained
up.
people after
And then
that.
he was training people, again, this whole like perpetual giving, and when somebody received something, they wanted to give it back tenfold because they just felt so honored. So a lot of that's just really neat, and when you start to think about a community that's underserved, it's that. And so again, if we can just kind of start from the ground up, that's, I feel like, what that project did.
I agree. So, that's us. I
Still
can't think
include
that
it.
we covered everything.
Yeah.
Honest to God,
Some of
that
it
is
was-
those art wraps, I can't.
You saw how thankful people were, they're almost in tears, and
Yeah.
nobody really likes to admit that they need a helping hand once in a while, but again, when they were like, well, we've got these great computers and they're refurbished, and you're gonna also have IT, and you have this support. It's not just here's gonna be a paperweight in your house. It's we're actually gonna teach you how to use it, and it's gonna be something that you can take and teach your kids. And
Was that much of a burden on the college then, in terms of the support? Because they
I
had
think
promised
so.
to do
I
it.
never heard from it
Right?
being
It
a,
hadn't been.
he did it a second time, so.
I think he just took his class. It was the IT part program, and I think they just took their class down there and helped hand it out.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
I
No,
don't
they
think it's a
helped
big deal.
us
and everyone got trained.
set up, but
A
They
little training.
provide follow-up.
Yeah.
They
Right,
provide a
right.
follow-up,
Well,
yeah.
and one of the things that they do within that program is they will, for a fee or something like that, like a $20 fee, they will fix any computer. Like if I
So
could.
they do that anyway.
They do it anyway, yeah, so like I could bring my home computer up to the IT department, and if they have the capacity and the wherewithal to fix it, they'll do it for, a discounted rate or something. Cause then they get to see different, within the program, they get to see different, operating systems and
Sure.
computers and all that kind of thing.
Sure.
It was kinda nice.
it was good backup,
Yeah.
it was good for me.
Well, so we think we've touched most of the bases then, Lori, on the
Yeah, I think
projects?
so.
Yeah,
Maybe a few, I don't know that we got to every first round thing we did, but we're good.
yeah. Well, I'd like to suggest that we might kind of close our time here today by asking everybody to go around. We'll start with you, Tom, and just reflect on one thing that you feel really good about as a result of the project.
I mean, going over all the projects, I'm just, recently it's really surprising how much we got done. Like, I
Yeah.
can't believe it.
Yeah.
Like, it's been a long time. It took a long time, but it's really impressive the amount of work that we actually got done. And, all of us were volunteering our time pretty much. And, I think we really helped the community in substantial ways, increasing access to technology in a region that is traditionally pretty poor with technology and adapting to change, kind of. So I'm just surprised. I can't believe how much we did.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I guess for me was the relationship building with the business community. I just started with the Entrepreneur Fund about a year ago, about 14 months in, 12 months in, 14, whatever it is. And so for me, not being native to Hibbing, this allowed me to get a foot in the door and to open it up and be able to talk with the business owners. And I'm working with a lot of them one-on-one for free afterwards with some of the services that we can provide at the Entrepreneur Fund. And so I guess for me, it just, the people and the overwhelming feedback from everybody about how great it was made all of the time that we put in, and kind of when we're like, oh, is this gonna work? Knowing that it worked and getting that feedback was pretty awesome.
For me, it was, I think, the ability to build some champions, like I said, to have some great partnerships and some individuals who, like the guys that are here, that really stepped up. That was, I mean, we lost a few people, that was disappointing, but having that happen was awesome. And then the other is just being able to touch and help people who usually don't get help. And I'm not talking about just the PCs for people, I'm talking about those really small business owners who are just like,
They have to do everything.
they have to do everything, and they're frustrated and they're scared, and everything's on the line. So it's really nice when we can go in and give them something that doesn't cost them anything.
I guess I kind of taking it up to more of a regional approach, and I feel that compared to 2 years ago, there is now this regional network of people who understand broadband in the area, they understand the need, and so there's a way to tap in when we need the support. Like when Tina Smith came up and we held that day, how it was, okay, I have an email chain, I can just send this out to 20 people from Cook, Ely to Hibbing that now are in the know, somewhat on the same page, and can really advocate for better broadband in our region.
Fine. I guess I'll take it down to a more of a microscopic level, and because I can really only talk or attest to the technology fair that I did. Although it has been really interesting, like listening and hearing and understanding more about broadband and knowing what's going on in the community too. Knowing now that the Memorial Building is going to be on board, or knowing that we're going to have hotspots around Hibbing that weren't there before. I know that now. I can tell other people. I can be a resource. But yeah, just the technology fair. I think it was interesting and fun to see, especially from the teacher and the student perspective, that there are options out there that they maybe didn't know about before, and so I think that was really interesting and fun. So.
Kind of touching on what Lori said, just hitting in the smaller businesses that we normally don't work with through the consulting and then the marketing series. Just with my exposure, it was nice being able to help those businesses.
For me, as someone that's popped in and out of this work only a few times throughout the last year and a half, it is amazing to see how much gets accomplished. And partnership building, that takes a long time usually. I mean, to you it probably feels very laborious, but to me it's like, wow, look at all of these synergistic things coming together in such a short period of time. So it's fun to hear.
I still remember Lori's phone call with me, and she was, I hate you and I love you.
I tell John that all the time, right?
It is work.
Right.
It is definitely work, but it's amazing when you see, okay, here's $75,000, and you look at other projects or other consultants or what you get for that, and the amount of work that's been done here is amazing. And then so much of it is sustainable. And then, Northeast Minnesota has probably got more regional resources than many other regions in terms of business and economic development. And so to tap into like the Entrepreneur Fund as a, that initial dollars creates that glue to make, this is how this can work. And it's exciting. So thank you, Lori.
No, thank you. Really, I really need it.
Both parts, right?
I do. This is great.
Well, I just think it's great listening to all the work that you guys have been doing. I'm from outside of Deer River, and sometimes I have crappy service too, and I know that we have areas around Deer River in our area. Anger is one of them. And I used to work for Leech Lake Band Ojibwe, so a lot of our rural reservation communities have nothing. And I would have to go out there and do work, and I would, lose service or couldn't do my work if I had a laptop with me. So it's so encouraging to hear all the work that you guys are doing, and it gives me hope that maybe there are people, maybe I need to be one of those people in my community to start doing the work to get more.
We'd love to have ya.
Good job.
Well, it's been fun being a part of the process from the beginning all the way through, and meeting people and having, meeting people over and over, seeing it happen in real life instead of just on paper. It's also been kind of cool. It's like I know my way geographically around the range now. I didn't before, but
Grand Rapids isn't on the way.
right. Well, I mean, the road doesn't end there. Now I can I don't have to turn on my phone all the time every time I drive up here, so it's good.
I think you guys do an awesome job of telling your stories. You have sent me many links to things in the paper, and I think when you can get in the local paper, that's when you get to people who. So the question always is, how do you get to the people who aren't online? We're so used to communicating through email and through social media. Newspaper, the old school newspaper, and you've done an awesome job of getting a lot of that in there. Awesome.
Yeah, I guess kind of like you, Lori, it's just so cool to see leaders emerge and people the light goes on and they kind of get it. And I also, so just right here in your team, we've seen that happen. And I love to see the connections right here in Hibbing across people. But like Whitney too, I kind of have a perspective and see range wide. It's makes me hopeful that there are people across the region now that see and have kind of a shared lodestar out there about what we want to do. So it's encouraging. And I guess finally I'd say that I think people are realistic that this is hard work and it takes a long time, and they're not discouraged. So, there are a few little wins, but I get the sense that people get that this is a long race and not a sprint. And so I'm encouraged by the stick-to-itiveness, I guess, that I sense in people.
Has it really been, did you say 18 months?
Yeah.
Seems like 6 years.
Seems like yesterday.
Well,
Do
so
it again.
yeah.
You didn't come on until midway, did you?
No, I think I was there
We
from
were
the
at the
beginning.
No,
beginning.
Tom was at the very
Yeah.
beginning. He came to all the
Oh.
meetings for sure.
Yeah.
The
Oh, that's right.
Recharge Broadband Initiative. And
Yeah, you were
this
involved
came
with
out of
that, and
Yeah.
then you came on the Hibbing team.
Yeah.
I looked
Yeah.
over that. That's right.
So we will be, you guys, I know understand, this is really all thanks to IRRR's support of the work that they, and through their Recharge the Range effort, which the commissioner undertook a couple years ago, really allowed him to make the case to his commissioners that broadband is like a bad penny. It just keeps showing up, and it's a red thread through all of the Recharge the Range efforts. Whitney told me that broadband was a constant theme, and so it really laid the foundation to be able to make the case that investments in broadband adoption were a good choice for IRRR. And so our grant is now concluding, as yours with ours is ours with IRRR, and so Blind Foundation will be reporting out on the what happened, and so these meetings here are great for us to help inform that, and just for ourselves to know kind of that fingertip feel, as I like to say, about what really happened. And then we also will be reporting, my team at the foundation tries to make a case to our board of trustees about the impact of this work. I mean, you can imagine, right, the foundation have a lot of choices about how to spend our scarce resources, I like to say kids or trees or roads or what, right? And so we also will be reporting back to our own internal team, including the board, about the impact of this work. So that's ahead for us. And then at the foundation, we have decided, as part of that, I think that we're going to continue. We want to continue to do this work, and so through a self-funded cohort that IRRR is not involved in, we've identified 4 new communities, mostly in the southern part of the state, that we're going to be working with to run them through this program. However, one of those communities is Coochin County, and so they are fit kind of more geographically up into this region. And you probably heard, or maybe did, that IRRR has agreed to support another round of this work here on the Iron Range. And so we're kind of just launching now a process to identify and recruit 4 new communities up here on the Iron Range that we will work with in this process as well. And Coochin is going to join that cohort. So when we kind of get up and running towards the end of the year, we have a selection recruitment now. We met with Betsy and who was her partner? And Melissa, right, over the Laurentian Chamber meeting, which is another big building up here that needs internet access, and maybe we'll get done through this. and so we're beginning to think about how can we best partner, who are the best communities out there that wanna run through this again. As part of this round 2, IRRR has resourced us to continue working with this original cohort of 6 communities. You guys are Iron Range Broadband communities. And so if you're interested and willing and able, we are willing and able now and resourced through IRRR to bring you along in another, as alumni communities for the next 2 years. And if there's interest, that comes with an additional up to $50,000 of grant funds to do new projects, to do more projects, to continue. And what we're gonna ask is that we kind of reset back to that original vision meeting. Remember when we did that? We had the 60 people and cast a big white net. What ideas out there? Where are your needs? Where are your pain points? Where are the opportunities? Bill will work with us again here to do that and invite, kind of open the faucet again real wide. And then similarly identify projects, and then there'll be up to $50,000 in grants available. So that's something for you to think about, and we love the regional approach and would love a chance to continue working with you guys.
So then we could just bring our steering committee back together and just decide whether we wanna do that, and then we just talk to you.
Vision.
And I think that having one larger community meeting like last time will give us the opportunity to reach out to all those people that came to that first meeting and say, this is what we've done. And this is our opportunity to, do some more of this kind of work.
And who wants to be involved with the next session?
Yeah, look what we got done. Tom just said it was look what we got done. So you can reach back out to look what we got done, and who wants to come and join our team to do more.
Yeah, and who are those people with the energy to,
I wish we could
And
get
what's
the
something
school
you're really
district.
passionate about, and could you?
yeah.
And she'll have an impressive track record. It wasn't just talk. So when we were in the Cook, one of the city administrators who was there, she says, I'm one of those people, oh, it's all on the wall. Yeah. So what are we going to actually do? And much like you, she said, wow, we got a lot done, and it wasn't just talk. So.
What was been so great up there, the Cook or Grizzlies, they're all like, look at us, we're sitting out here hanging out, talking, like they never had done that before, or not as often, and that's why I was, of course, late to Ely, because I'm sitting there with their group, chatting with them, and it was just great to see, so.
Yeah.
Just for my reference, what were so obviously Hibbing, Cook and
They call themselves
what were
the
the
Grizzlies.
6, you said the 6 communities, because I
She
only
came
know
out
Hibbing.
late.
Yeah.
So it is Hibbing,
Yep,
Chisholm,
okay,
Mount Iron Buell, Cook or Boys Ford,
okay,
Aiken County,
okay,
and Ely.
just curious.
And so, as we look, certainly the East Range is one of our targets. We'd love to find a group kind of west of Hibbing, between, western St. Louis and eastern,
Yeah.
Well, they did that,
Nashwauk.
they did that big project.
Yeah, fiber to the home north of
Yeah.
Nashwauk, but think of the stuff this could do, just think of these projects, just in like
Within
Nashwauk,
the
Keewatin,
Nashwauk,
or
yeah.
Nashwauk, like
Greenway.
Hopi, I don't know, they could, but there's no champion there, I don't know if you have an idea, but,
You, maybe.
oh.
I'll share it with you.
Well, Whitney and I are ready to make the pitch to them.
Oh, okay,
And,
who are you pitching to?
No,
We
Well,
are
once we find
struggling.
someone to
They
talk
need,
to.
they need your name, whatever name you're giving.
Well, I think